Texas, I think, has around at least 15% of the global hash rate. Not just like North America, but like just Texas has about 16% of the global hash rate on the Bitcoin networks. Even if I don't understand Bitcoin, I understand the dollar now, and I understand that it is broken. And I understand that it's a slavery, debt-focused Keynesian system, and I don't want to be a part of it anymore. My money would come in, and I'd have a credit card bill, but it wasn't due for 30 days. I'm like, I'm not going to pay that bill early. Why would I do that? It's free. There's no charge on it if I wait another 30 days. So I would wait, and Bitcoin would go up, and then I would cash out and pay my credit card bill, but I still had Bitcoin left over. Now that my energy and my time is not being robbed, I don't feel like I'm constantly on a hamster wheel trying to get ahead of the fiat dollar. It gives me the peace of mind and the time and energy to focus on the things that I want to focus on, that I find of value, and knowing that nobody's stealing my time and energy. It's 100x overnight if Russia, the US, and a couple other countries, China, decide, hey, we're not settling in gold because you can't transport gold. We're going to start settling our debts in Bitcoin. It's over. It's not $1. It's not 100. It's not 1,000,000. It's not 1 billion. It's just Bitcoin. Bitcoin can actually go in and take methane gas, right? That's venting from like these landfills, harness it, use it to generate power, and mine Bitcoin. Where it's going to go is you're going to see more use cases like that. You're going to see use cases like people heating their homes, people using it for hot water, in their hot water heaters. You're going to see people using it for heat. You're going to see people using it for in any spare energy anywhere. They bring boys, young men and women from these little villages. They put them to work teaching them about Bitcoin mining, electrical infrastructure, hydroelectric power. These people are getting power. Some of them are getting running water for the first time. They're getting power for the first time.
Welcome to the Bitcoin broadcast. Today we have on David. It's awesome. Nice to meet you, David. Thank you so much for coming on. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm doing real good. I smoked a brisket actually on this smoker right here night before last, and I set a new personal best for deadlift in the gym today. So it's a rare day when it's sub 90 degrees in Texas. So it's a good, nice, cool day today. I'm having a good day. How are you?
Good, man. It's so nice here too. It's like 80 degrees. It's sunny. It's beautiful here in Florida.
Well, you're in Florida, man. It's always beautiful there. Always.
We're supposed to get a cold front this week, so I think it's going to drop into the 40s on Tuesday next week. Yeah,
all right, you guys. I'll call to check on you. Make sure none of you died. All right.
I know. Yeah. The poor iguanas are all going to freeze.
Oh, I have a terrible iguana story. I was down there for an event in Naples with the Bitcoin Day guys, and we stayed in an Airbnb, and two of us were gone and one of us was waiting for their Uber ride to the airport. The door didn't close all the way, and they heard this weird noise, and they went around to look, and the door was open about that wide, and they're like, well, that's weird. And then they see a tail sticking out of one of the hallway doors. And he goes in to look, and it had scrambled under the bed or something. And they text, I should publish these text messages. They're cracking me up. It's like, I can neither confirm nor deny that there may or may not be an iguana in one of the bedrooms. And so, but we came back later, and my buddy took a video of us looking for it. And we're looking under everything, you look down, right? You think that's not where you look. You're supposed to be looking up. So looking down and stuff, and I look up and see it on the curtains, and it's like Godzilla size, right? It's like it's not. It was actually very small, but it when I first saw it, I was like, oh my God, yeah. And so he got me all surprised on video and stuff. Yeah, those iguanas are no joke, man. They are all over everywhere, everywhere.
Yeah. Well, and if you didn't know, once it drops in temperature about below 50 or 55
They
degrees, they
just
freeze.
freeze. Yeah,
Well, yeah, they freeze and then they fall out of the trees
yeah.
because they can't hang on anymore,
It's
and
like it
they
sounds
look
like
like they're dead.
yeah, it sounds like fruits like hitting the ground. You're like, what is that? And you go out and there's like eight dead iguanas. That's crazy. Do they thaw out and like warm up or what? How does that work?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
just
they
so
thaw out.
crazy, man.
So they
That's
say
just
don't pick them up.
yeah,
They literally say on the news, don't pick them up and put them in your car because as soon as they warm up in your car, they'll wake up.
right, yeah. Well, I mean, it's crazy. I know they're invasive. It's like when you call animal control, they get rid of them, like get rid of them, right? Because they're so invasive. But man, that's a really cool part of Florida. All the animals, there's a lot of crazy animals in Florida. So
Yeah, no, it's great. I love it. We've lived here about a year, so we're still adapting to it, but dude, it's so nice. Um, so how's Texas? How's Bitcoin mining going in Texas?
man, Texas is rocking and rolling. So the China mining ban that happened, I think in 2020, 2021, whatever time frame that was.
Yep.
I was just coming in, so I might have actually missed. Well, no, I guess I had people that were moving to Texas from China that I met with um, in my job, and but like that happened. A lot of those came to Texas. It's just been building. We have a lot of power here. We have cheap power. We're a deregulated power market, so we have our own power grid, and so Bitcoin mining's actually been very good for helping to strengthen and balance the grid. Making it a little more resilient. When we had that 2021 February 2021 blizzard come through, we called it Snowvid because it just come on the tails of COVID. Um, it was we lost a lot of power in certain parts of the grid, and um, people were like, I don't know, saying, well, the tech criticizing the Texas grid, saying it wasn't, couldn't handle the power needs and all that kind of stuff. It's not really true. That was kind of a once in 100 years sort of situation, very rare. But now that that's happened, Bitcoin miners will actually go in and they will buy excess energy that usually is wasted. And then we will turn off during times of peak stress on the grid and let the power go other places. And it's a lot cheaper, but it's a negative uh, because used to have to charge peaker plants would charge Texans to turn on and generate more power during these times of load. We don't have to do that. We'll just buy power from them when it's cheap and mine Bitcoin with it, and then we'll turn off when when it needs to be diverted to a town or to a business or homes or whatever. So it's really been very resilient help the grid become more resilient. It's given the power companies much more revenue here, especially for stranded or kind of wasted energy. Um, and I mean, it kind of varies depending on the time of year and stuff. But uh, Texas, I think, has around at least 15% of the global hash rate, not just like North America, but like just Texas has about 15-16% of the global hash rate on the Bitcoin network. So you're talking about 150 exahash just in Texas alone. So we're moving and shaking here. Bitcoin mining is a real legit industry here in Texas. It's still very cowboy. You go out to the middle of nowhere and you drop a bunch of containers and stuff, but it's getting much more respectable. It's a beautiful system. We will only turn on and use energy if it's worth it. If it's not, we don't go there. We go somewhere else. So it's a beautiful capitalistic system that just kind of helps balance everything out in a really beautiful way. Plays into the whole Bitcoin proof of work system, the how SHA-256 works, and um, so yeah, it's been really fun working here. I was just lucky. I was here when I found it. but it's been really great. It's brought a lot of good people and Bitcoiners to Texas.
No, that's awesome. I did not know it. Texas alone held that much hash rate and that much uh, Bitcoin power mining. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I knew that they were really big in mining. I lived in Houston for a year
Mhm.
and I never really got to see any of it, but I always heard, that there was so many Bitcoin miners out there. And I wish I was more involved in Bitcoin back then because I probably would have traveled more and been like, gotten to see some of it,
Sure.
but I never got to. Um, but rewinding a bit, how did you get into Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining and getting into all of this energy? How did that all start?
So I actually, if I go back a little bit, I had a services company. I was working with a business partner. He and I had got laid off from a job, and then we spun that into our own company, and we were providing that service for different businesses across the country. And a guy, we had a small little office above a flooring store. Like when I say flooring store, there was like a carpentry shop, right? Like it was in the middle of nowhere,
Wow.
east of Austin, just the one standalone, and then they had like a barn in the back, and they had this tiny little office upstairs, and we were way over fire code for sure. We crammed like 12 people in that at one point, and we had a tiny little office. Me and my partner and a admin guy would hang out in that tiny little back. I mean, we were in there like sardines, but we had a great time, and we were making some money, and our rent included uh, free power, so we didn't pay a power bill on our electricity. And uh, the admin guy was a really smart kid, about I don't know, maybe 10 years younger than us, and he said, we get all this free power and we're only using these computers 8 hours a day. Maybe we should start mining Bitcoin. And I'm like, well, what's Bitcoin? So he tells me about it, gives us kind of a 30, 40 minute, kind of overview of Bitcoin. My partner looks at me and goes, what do you think? And I said, what do I think? He said, yes. I said, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why do I want to trade my dollars for Chuck E. Cheese tokens? That's stupid. This is never going to work. And looking back on it, I think Bitcoin was like 400, $500, something like just absolutely wrecked. And we had free power. So we could have and we still, at that point, they were moving over to, ASICs. But at that point, I could still mine and, make some Bitcoin it was free power. I could have made some Bitcoin with, ran a node, and I could have mined with my computers. I had like a dozen, desktops there that had 480 GPUs, right? The old red pill that you would, uh, just overclock the crap out of that thing. And I could have done that, but I didn't know. I didn't know what it was or what I had. I wasn't ready for it. So I'd had that company was defunct. I'd had another company I'd worked with that didn't really go anywhere. 2019, I had lost a lot, and uh, I tell this to kind of to set up, I was ready for Bitcoin, right? But in 2019, I had lost everything. I had a bunch of credit card debt. I had no money at all, and I was just really struggling. I went and started like delivering pizzas for a guy that I knew, who owned some Domino's franchises and stuff like that. It's like I was just desperate, and I had tried to get jobs back at like old jobs, like at Dell Computers and some other tech companies here in Austin, and I just couldn't get anything. And finally, I was like, well, man, I don't have money to pay bills in 2 months, right? Like I need to go. So I just started delivering pizza. I started listening to music and podcasts, and while I was in the car, I taught myself a little bit of Mandarin. That was kind of fun. I don't know why I did that. It was just for fun, but I just kind of like languages. But then and then COVID hit, and it turns out this was October 2019. Well, COVID hit in March, so I did that 6 months, just feeling miserable, and COVID hit, and all of a sudden, we were the only place you could get food, right? Like nobody was doing delivery yet. Uber Eats wasn't really a big deal yet. Um, a lot of the restaurants shut down for like a year. They didn't even reopen and offer like to go orders for a while. So I got to tell you, man, in 2020, I was making like 6 or 7 grand a month delivering Domino's pizza. It was kind of crazy. I was working my tail off, right? But it was weird because my wife was working. I was in the mornings. I was working lunch through evening, sometimes 12, 13, 14 hours. And like, making okay money. But like our boys, I had two young boys. They were like 10 and 13 at the time. They were at home by themselves most of the day. I didn't like that. It's like, so it was okay, but it was, man, it was miserable. It was just miserable doing that. Um, so I still didn't find Bitcoin, right? Kept doing that. And eventually in 2021, my wife was like, you can't do this anymore. Like, it's destroying our family, this off schedules and stuff. It's like, you've paid off, the credit cards, we've got a little bit, say, just quit and go find another job. Make that your job to find another job. I said, okay. And I had been staying up late, very depressed, right? Staying up late, watching YouTube and, online. And we have a small little koi pond right behind me in our house. We bought the house right when I had money, when I had a company and all that kind of good stuff. And we and I was like, I had been going down the like aquaculture rabbit hole, like how to use hydroponics to grow food, vegetables. Obviously it was very big on, marijuana and stuff, but I wasn't going to do that. I just wanted to do something. And I spent money we didn't need to spend. And I went to a store, like Home Depot or whatever, and got a bunch of wood and pipes and pumps and all this stuff. I ordered a few things on Amazon, and then I just started building this raised grow bed, um, and kind of figured out the math of it. How the water flowed, pumps, flood and drain system, bell siphon, all that kind of stuff. And my neighbor across the street walked over to see what I was doing. I'd lived next to him like 6 years by this point, and I said. And he asked me what I was doing, and I told him, and he said, "Are you an engineer?" I said, "No, I just like figuring stuff out and doing stuff with my hands. It's kind of fun." And he said, "Well, what do you know about Bitcoin?" I was like, "Not really much of anything. Like I have like a few GPUs up there, but they were mining like it was pre-merge. They were mining like Dagger Hashimoto, but I was mining to nice hash, so I was actually getting paid out in Bitcoin, right? Um, and for a while there, it was still profitable. Uh, and it was basically paying my electric bill. Like I was making enough Bitcoin to pay my entire house electric bill. It was great, but I just saw it as that, right? I didn't see it as anything else.
Nice.
And then, and he said, "Well, what do you know about immersion cooling?" I'm like, "Well, less than I know about Bitcoin. What's that?" So that company, he was the CEO. He just passed away a few months ago, but still, his family still lives right across the street from me. They He was the CEO at the time of a company called Midas Immersion, and Midas had just built 200 megawatts of immersion cooling for Riot, the publicly traded miner. So I came in to do business development for them and got to see at scale how you scale out large scale Bitcoin mining, especially on immersion. And then started looking at hydro a little bit while I was still there. Hydro was starting to kind of come out. So I was getting kind of testing and looking at that. Because I was like, well, if hydro's better, then it'll get rid of immersion, right? Like we won't have anything to do. And then had a falling out with them, and just decided it's like I can't go back to working an office job. I can't go to Dell. I can't do any of that. I'm kind of unemployable now because over time I was working with these really fun guys, and I'm like, these guys are plugging in millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment on in West Texas, on the patch, right? On these like gas and oil sites. I'm like, or just on grid, but out there where power's cheap. I'm like, what do these guys know that I don't? And so they would say things during the day. We'd be out there working, and they'd say things during the day like, it's like, oh man, yeah, did you see the Sats for VByte on the mempool? And I was like, oh, why? And they're like, oh, it's like 8 Sats for VByte. And I'm like, oh man. And I was like, turn around and like, I don't know what the hell they're talking about. I would have to Google it and learn, right? I was like learning about Bitcoin working with these guys. And then after leaving that company, I kind of found a couple of odd jobs to work on, make a little bit of commission, and I was listening to podcasts, listening to Robert Breedlove's podcasts with the first ones he did with Michael Saylor, and I started listening to Michael Saylor, and I started listening to people, finding people online, and reading books, Bitcoin standards, stuff like that. And then I read The Creature from Jekyll Island, and I thought, actually, I think they mentioned it on Breedlove's podcast. That's where I found it, and I was like,
Okay.
I read that thing, and my brain was turned inside out. I was like, this is not. I don't understand Bitcoin. I'm not technical enough to understand it yet, right? I didn't dig into it really hard on the technical side, but I kind of understand the idea behind it. But even if I don't understand Bitcoin, I understand the dollar now, and I understand that it is broken. And I understand that it's a slavery, debt focused Keynesian system, right? Keynesian economics. And I don't want to be a part of it anymore. And at some point and I was dollar cost averaging down all the way to like $20,000 Bitcoin during that 2022 drop. And,
Yeah.
and then I thought, man, if Bitcoin is even a 1% chance that it is what it says it is, I know for a fact 100% of the time the dollar is going to steal my time and my energy. So why would I take a guaranteed loser over a potential winner? And right about that time is when I heard Sailor say, you don't give up the first place horse, you don't diversify, you don't give up the first place horse to on on the chance that he's going to lose when the last place horse, the odds of him winning are zero, right? And I was like, that just clicked. And in 2020 at 20,000 or 2022 at $20,000, I took whatever little bit of money I had left. I cashed out everything, any 401k, retirement, all of that. I just cashed it out and went full into Bitcoin, and then cried as it went down to 16 and thought, oh, I have destroyed my life, right? I have destroyed my family. And then I didn't just hodl. I wasn't smart and committed. I gave up. I was like, well, I'm losing the fiat game and I'm losing Bitcoin. I just can't do anything right. And so I just said, screw it. I didn't look at anything. I'm like, I'm not doing anything until the new year. And so I went through the holidays, December. I kind of crawled into a bottle, not like in a super unhealthy way. I just ignored everything and everybody. And then it started crawling out, and I was like, oh, okay. Oh, I'm back to break even. Maybe I should let it go. And I was like, yeah, it's going back up. I'm going to wait a little while, you know? And I waited. And then it's like all through 23 and 2024, I could not buy Bitcoin fast enough. Like as I would get money here and there, I went a long period of time with like no income in 23. So that was a challenge. Right. Not to sell stats, but like just stretching along and okay, I'm going to let the credit card bill go 1 month and then I'm going to pay it off. What? But Bitcoin was rising so fast. I was like, why would I pay off the credit card bill? Right. Why wouldn't I buy Bitcoin now and then I'll pay it in 30 days? And you know what I mean? It was weird. And so that's what I've been doing ever since. I've just been working with, different people, trying to help connect teams and bring projects together. But that 2023, 2024, even most of, 25, it's been a chop, but like, I just couldn't buy Bitcoin fast enough. I couldn't buy it fast enough. And just when you think it's going to stop in 2024, it chopped for like 6, 7, 8 months. And then boom, it goes from like 68K to 90K, and it never went back. It didn't go back. There was a little dip under 90K not too long ago, right? Earlier this year, but like you never know when it's going to pop. And it was just, I was just hungry for more sats as much as I could possibly get. And that's all I did, man. I just stacked and stacked and stacked and stacked and stacked as fast as I could. And it's paid off, right? In fact, in some cases, it's the only way I would have survived, right? As emergencies come up or bills and things come up or you need to do something for your family or whatever, I might not have survived if I hadn't. I wouldn't have survived financially if I hadn't have found Bitcoin. So
Well, it's fascinating
Yeah.
because, I mean, most people, when they find Bitcoin, you always hear of like this moment or this, you see the bright orange light and you're like, it changes your entire perspective. It changes your life.
Yeah.
It makes you change what you do. It changes your habits. How did Bitcoin, when you found it, and it sounds like it reshaped your life pretty dramatically. How did it take hold of you guys as a family and as a father
Sure.
and reshape how you guys live? I know you said that you were smoking meat, and I believe you're carnivore most of the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're all the time, but how did it reshape your life?
Yeah, so I started taking a hard look at like relationships, right? What's good in my life and what's bad, and just taking the bad and cutting it out. Um, and then and just I mean literally just like don't return texts, don't do you just cut it out, right? Get out of these situations, whatever it is. You start looking at things for what they really are, and you start seeing them for either, and it's very black and white. It's you're like things are either good or they're bad, right? It's like I can't. It's light or it's dark. It's lightness or it's dark, and it just became because Bitcoin either is or it isn't. There's no, you can't change it, right? Um, so it's like yeah, I know there's controversies and there's things people use it, but ultimately Bitcoin is just a tool. It is what it is. Now, how you use it is the good or the bad, right? So how people use it, which is the true about everything in life, every tool, right? So you start looking at things that way. So I started cutting out all the negative relationships I had. Um, in 2023, another Bitcoiner, Nick, CEO of Luxor, was posting online how he had found carnivore and was going to try carnivore. And I was like, that's interesting. Uh, so I did some research on it and started January 1st, 2023. I didn't lift weights at all. I ate nothing but red meat and drank water. I even cut out black coffee for a while. And um, I, ju- I did cheat like literally only about 3 or 4 times the entire year. I would have a meal that had bread or vegetables or something else. It was almost always red meat or eggs or bacon. That was it. I did not lift any weights, but I would go for a walk in the morning, listen to a podcast or an audio book or something, and then I'd do another walk before I went to bed. I'd take a shower and go to bed. I would always take a cold shower before I went to bed. For the calendar year of 2023, I lost 40 pounds. I went from 235 to 195. So it was about 20% of my body weight, roughly. Um, it was pretty, no, a little less than 20%, but yeah, it was a big deal. Then I started looking at, you know, things like all my finances changed. I, uh, I, I was working with on behalf of a couple people and got to make some really cool trips. I got to go in 2024. I got to go to, Madeira in Portugal. They had a halving event there, and I got to meet Michael Saylor. I got to meet Jack Mallers. I got to meet Brian DeMint, who is one of the founders of Orange Pill app. Mateo, who his partner. Like I met. I mean Bram K, who also does a podcast. Right, it's like I met all these amazing people that I'm still in contact with today, which is amazing. But I the Jack Mallers thing was probably one of the biggest, really green lights for me. Orange lights, I guess is probably the better way to orange pill. I saw him online doing his mailbag thing that he did. And he said, we're going to be there when everybody realizes they need to go officially on the Bitcoin standard. And what I mean by that is your money comes in, you immediately put it in Bitcoin, and then you don't cash it out until you need to make a bill payment. And I was like, is that even possible? Can you do that? Right. And then I realized I was like, well, yeah, I did that for 23 and 24, right? Like I in 23, it was going up. My money would come in and I'd have a credit card bill, but it wasn't due for 30 days. I'm like, I'm not going to pay that bill early. Why would I do that? It's free. there's no charge on it if I wait another 30 days. So I would wait and Bitcoin would go up and then I would cash out and pay my credit card bill, but I still had Bitcoin left over. You know what I mean? It was, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm kind of already doing that. So uh he said that, and I made that move, and I do that with accounting, like when I'm working with people or I hire people as contractors or I'll negotiate in dollars, but then I always buy and or pay with Bitcoin because that's the hack right there. It's like I negotiate with someone and say, hey, I'll pay you $2,000 for this job to do a few weeks worth, 3 or 4 weeks worth of work for me. They're like, okay. I leave the 2,000 in Bitcoin. If it goes up 10%, 5%, I keep that Bitcoin and then I pay them the $2,000. I don't freak out and say, let's do this, whatever. Now, during a bear market, I know that can be challenging, right? You probably want to temper that a little bit, but I had seen the meme, the green, 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 red. And I was like, I think we just had a long red, green, green, green. Okay, we're coming into 26. Now I'm going to rethink it a little bit, but you know what I mean? I was like, I think it's going to run. And I was right. Um, I also started realizing how you could use debt the proper way. I had always struggled with debt. And in 2022, 23, I looked up one day and I had a little Bitcoin, but not a lot. And I was like, man, I have great credit. Let me ask myself a question. Would I rather be poor with good credit, or would I rather be rich and not really give a shit what my credit score is? And that was that was a weird little enlightening moment. And I realized it's like, well, everybody's going to say rich. I don't care. If I had the money to just go buy whatever I wanted, I didn't care about the credit, then yeah, that's what I'd rather do. So I took my credit cards because I had like 3 or 4 credit cards. Bitcoin was around 22,000. I bought almost 3 Bitcoin, right? I had like $60,000 worth of cash I had gotten advanced on my credit cards at 0% interest, right? 0%. And it was 12 months. And I thought, okay, I'm going to buy Bitcoin with this. And then every month I calculated it out. Every month for the next 12 months, I'm going to take out this amount to pay it off, right? And I'm just going to see what happens. Well, we know how 2023 and 2024 went. By the end of that, this was from like March, April 23 to 24. By the time I was done with that 12 months later, I had paid that off and I still had Bitcoin left. You know what I mean? So it's like I had used debt to make me money, make me,
Yeah.
spendable value. I was like, this is insane. So I've those are some of the kind of crazy things that have happened. I'm still very much carnivore. I'm not as focused on what my actual legit weight is anymore. I got back into lifting. And so now I'm like, I just want to be as strong as I possibly can. The scale number, this is also something you realize. It's fun to measure things and it's fun to the scale, but you should really only measure the things that are truly important. And so I didn't care about the scale anymore. So I'm no longer 195. I'm probably like, I don't know, it might be like 215 today or something like that. So it sounds like a lot, but most of it's muscle, right? So I've been focusing on how can I lift and put on muscle and things like that. I've probably put on a little bit of fat, part of that, but I'm down to like 13% body fat. My goal is to be sub 10, right? And I now have Bitcoin has given me, now that my energy and my time is not being robbed, I don't feel like I'm constantly on a hamster wheel trying to get ahead of the fiat dollar. It gives me the peace of mind and the time and energy to focus on the things that I want to focus on, that I find of value, and knowing that nobody's stealing my time and energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
No,
that's
no, it's fascinating that
those are probably the biggest.
uh okay. No, it's fascinating that you mentioned getting rid of bad relationships or bad situations and negativity, that's definitely something that I've done throughout the past couple of years, is just been cutting out, politics as much as possible, even though it's pretty much impossible these days.
Yeah.
But trying to ignore politics, cutting out, friendships that I no longer. You think that it's like a good friendship, and then you're like, no, this is awful. Like every time we interact, it's bad. Like why do I continue this? And
Yep.
then you start focusing more on the important things like your family, your health, your wellness, and then like you said, you ended up losing a ton of weight, and all just from changing your diet and changing your habits. And it's fascinating how that happens. And I mean, the same things happen to me. I mean, I'm not 215. I'm about 202 right now.
Okay.
So but I'm trying to put on some more muscle. Uh but that,
Yeah.
it's a journey.
I mean,
I
it
enjoy
doesn't
it.
matter.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's really, I guess, I'm trying to think of the way to say it. Uh, Bitcoin, I think, is based on factual truth, not like a definition of truth, like my truth or whatever. It either is or it isn't, right? So once you get into it, you start to take that and realize what it is. You very easily that transfers to all aspects of your life. And so, like, it's kind of funny. Um, I've had conversations with people that are close to me or around me that have said, we're different, you've changed. And sometimes look at it and they think it's not for the better, but I know it is, right? So, like, um, I'll be at, the grocery store or out to dinner or, at an event or something. And there's somebody that comes up and I just immediately turn off, right? Like I immediately, and they're like, why were you so rude to that person? Or why did you just, and I was like, that's not, I don't want their energy. I don't want to waste time with that person. And I literally will just walk away. I'll just I won't even say goodbye.
I'll just Okay, we're back. Short
All right.
intermission. That's all right.
Hopefully everybody went to the bathroom and got a snack.
Um
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So what I was gonna ask is, how has Bitcoin changed your investing? Are you full in on Bitcoin still? Do you live on a Bitcoin standard? Especially with, like you said, the
Yeah.
green, red, 2026 could potentially be a deep bear market if it
Yep.
follows the trend. So how are you living and investing
So
right now?
I really don't care what my cost average is. Um, Bitcoin has enabled me to get, debt free, right? So anything that I had in the past is paid off. And so when something comes in, when stuff comes in, money comes in, I just immediately buy Bitcoin with it. I will say this, like if I've got money coming in and it comes in and like I know that I'm, going to pay X $1,000 of bills, in the next like 2 weeks, 4 weeks or whatever, I will leave it in there. Right. So it just comes out when those bills are due. But, I don't invest in anything else outside of Bitcoin or Bitcoin mining specifically. So I have a small, um, retirement account that's like left over from, that I didn't even really know about, like a few grand. So it's all buying Bitcoin mining companies. It's all in Bitcoin mining companies, but it's not a lot of money, right? I probably hold even outside of
Yeah.
the whatever equity I might have in my house. I have about 95% of my money of my store value in Bitcoin. And so I will, and the
Nice.
reason I do it that way is because I feel like I'm spending Bitcoin, uh, in the past, right? So like, let's say, um, I earned that money today, so it doesn't bother me to buy Bitcoin at 100,000, right? I don't have to wait for a dip. I don't have to, I don't, it doesn't bother me to buy it at 120,000. If you know what you got, it's fine. Um, but that Bitcoin that I bought like in 2022, once you realize what it is, it changes your whole perspective on that, right? So like, I like to tell a story about when my 15-year-old, I took him to get braces, and we went in, and they're like, yeah, he's gonna have to do this, this, and this, but basically, it's all gonna be about, it's gonna be about 10 grand worth between our services and somebody else's. I said, okay, and my son was like, oh, that's a lot of money, right? Um, And we walked out of there, and you could tell the guy was kind of clinched up. He was like expecting people, he expects people to get a little freaked out about the cost and whatever. And I was like, okay, so how do we take care of it? I was like, I don't care. And he said, he's like, oh, well, we can do half now, and then we'll do this, and then we'll do that. And I was like, okay, great. Yeah, here you go. Take care of it. And when I was talking to my son in the car, he's like, Dad, I'm sorry, that's a lot of money. I said, yeah, actually, buddy, you know how much your braces are actually costing, Daddy? He's like, I don't know how much. I go, $1,600, maybe $2,000. Why? Because I bought that Bitcoin when it was 20K. It's now worth, that same Bitcoin I bought at $20,000 is now worth $100,000. So I'm not paying $10,000 for your braces. I'm paying $2,000.
Do you ever think about it in the because I love that. Um, I've definitely heard people be like, "Oh yeah, the amount of Bitcoin that I bought back in the day, it's worth so much." Like if you're spending point zero
Yeah.
zero 0.001 Bitcoin, what I used to buy that for uh was so cheap, and now it's worth, X amount of dollars. But do you ever think of like, oh, I don't want to spend that point zero one Bitcoin because in the future that's going to even be worth 10x more?
Um, I went through that phase. I think every Bitcoiner does when they feel like they haven't stacked
Mhm.
enough, right? Um, and I still don't have enough Bitcoin. You'll never have enough Bitcoin, right? But it's like, but I've stacked like a psychopath for 3 or 4 years straight. And every dollar I got in, it's open. And Bitcoin, working in Bitcoin has opened up so many doors and opportunities for me that I've uh, been pretty successful. But like, something happened not too long ago with my family, and I needed to help out some family members, right? It was worth it to me, and I didn't care what the amount, what the future purchasing value was going to be, because you realize you're valuing Bitcoin in dollars anyway, and the dollars are really worthless. So we're measuring it with, we're using the wrong measuring stick, right? That's like saying, hey, I'm gonna pay you 1 day's labor to move all this stuff 1 mile, and then you come back the next day and they say it's 1 mile, but it's twice as far. You're like, well, wait a minute, what? That's no, this was, that mile stopped way back there. You go, yeah, but it stops here today. This is 1 mile. You know, the ruler isn't a good ruler. The measurement isn't a good way, way of measuring. It's so I what Bitcoin should do for you, and you do have to go through that progression where you say, okay, um I'm going to make all the sacrifices I can, and I'm going to stack and stack and stack and stack. And if you do that in 3 or 4 years or 5 years, 6 years, you will look up and your life will be radically different. Like, you will have made, you will have realigned your priorities. You will know what's valuable and what's not to you. You will be hopefully happier, healthier, all of that kind of stuff. And your purchasing power will have either A, not been robbed from you, or even better, your purchasing power might have gone up, right? Um, and we're still early enough to where that, I think that still will happen. A lot of people say it's like, the 100x is not around, will not exist anymore, and I'm like, that's bullcrap. Like, we could go from, once things happen, the right kind of things click, we could have governments decide they want to start doing settlements in Bitcoin. It's all over. You know what I mean? Like Like it's 100x overnight if Russia, the U.S. and a couple other countries, China, decide, hey, we're not settling in gold because you can't transport gold. It's too much of a pain to transport gold. We're going to start settling our debts in Bitcoin. It's over, right? We're talking about there is no more. It's not a dollar. It's not 100. It's not a million. It's not a billion. It's just Bitcoin, right? What will my Bitcoin buy? Is the question. And in a real economy, a real capitalistic society, that Bitcoin will be set, the price for that Bitcoin, the value of that Bitcoin will be set by the market, and it'll have nothing to do with the dollar. It'll be like, well, this whole cow is worth, 500,000 sats. Okay. And then maybe the next year, the farmer's like, oh, well, I no longer need 500,000 sats a cow to live. I need 250,000. And they're like, okay. So now the market says, well, it's worth 250,000 sats. And eventually we'll just go down to where it's like, it's worth a few thousand sats, right? It can happen overnight. Because no, all fiat currencies that operate under a debt-based system and an inflationary system, they they almost never whimper out. They almost always go out with a bang, right? It's because of war or revolt or the people just, or a tea party, right? It's like it always it will feel like it drags forever, and then you'll wake up one morning and everything will be different, like dramatically different. So so I don't really worry about that anymore. I just look at it and say, well, is it worth it to me to spend the money on this, right, or not? And it will realign you so you don't have to go through that exercise. It's still doing that for you, but you don't have to go through that exercise and say, oh, well, it's worth this in 2022. I've been in it, or at the end of 2022, it's 3 years later and it's 6x, 6x. Um, am I willing to hold on to this Bitcoin for another 3 years? Well, if you need some food between now and then, maybe you don't, right? You're not willing to do that. You need to buy some, you want to go to your farmer and buy a half a cow, buy a half a beef, right? Or whatever. You decide where your time and your energy goes. That's the shift. It's no longer, oh, I got to buy this now because I know prices are going up. I don't have to go to the grocery store and stock up on beef and stock up on all this stuff, right? Because as that goes up, I know that my Bitcoin value, my purchasing power will go up. It's the energy and time is the same. They can't screw with energy and time.
Yeah, I guess that yeah, I guess that's the saying, one Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin. Once you realize that
It is.
it's there and
It
it's
is.
all for you.
It's a
But
it's a
it's
it's
so true
a
though.
we were talking about it before the call, right? There's a lot of parallels, I think, between Bitcoin and Christianity, and it's the peace that surpasses understanding, right? Everybody else on the outside, because they're using a different set of rules, will look at you and think you are nuts.
Yeah.
You are absolutely crazy. Um, and you're like, well, yeah, but you're not living the truth that I'm living. You know what I mean? You're believing the lies. And so, uh, but yeah, like meeting Jack Mallers, who was mentioning earlier, right? It's like he saw that early, earlier than a lot. And when he said that, and then I got a chance one
Yeah.
time to say, hey man, in person, got to meet him and say thank you. It I thought he would just shake my hand and say, oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it's nice to meet a fan or something. But he looks at me and he leans in and he gives me a hug. And I was just like kind of taken aback, right? Because he's so genuine and he understands that level of freedom because he'd been in it longer. I'm still trying to get there, you know what I mean? But like once you realize that level of freedom, you don't believe the lies anymore and everything gets better. And it's just it's a game changer. It's a life changer.
Absolutely. And I think that's why Bitcoiners get so passionate about Bitcoin once they realize what they hold and what it is, because it does make you more free. It, like we have been talking about, makes you more, it changes your life. It changes your perspective, almost like a, like a finding Jesus moment. It's
Yeah,
fascinating. But I do have to ask you because you are in Bitcoin mining, so I was going to switch the subjects here
sure.
for a minute. Um, you have in your bio that it says if there's a problem anywhere in energy, it's safe to bet that Bitcoin
Yep.
fixes this. And people say Bitcoin fixes this all the
hmm
time. So how does Bitcoin mining fix the energy? What does that statement
Well,
mean?
I mean, you can take that in many, many different ways, right? Bitcoin in and of itself will fix the fiat system, and the fiat system is why we have government subsidies for, energy that says it's green, but it's really worthless. Um, Fiat system is why we have gates and access to, it's difficult to get access to.
Yeah, there we go. Back for the third time. We'll make it work.
Yep.
So sorry about that, but you were saying something about how Bitcoin fixes this.
Oh, the energy. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, obviously, if you're gonna fix fiat, you're gonna eliminate, some of the energy projects that don't work, that don't make any sense, right? They're just basically ways that the government hands out money to its friends and stuff. There's a lot of gates on energy and access to power that exist because of the fiat system that could kind of go away. Um, and so that's an easy one. But in Texas, for example, it's like we will buy, energy that is normally wasted or just let go. And what it does is it gives revenue to power producers that they normally would lose, right? So it actually makes their systems more efficient, makes them more profitable, and it gives them like the grid and power providers and things. It gives them revenue to continue building on their grid, expanding the grid, updating, worn out infrastructure, things like that, right? So and what people also don't realize, and there's been studies now that you can see it, people who have Bitcoin mining in their area, it's not like traditional data centers or AI. Um, because we will turn off and curtail, we're actually driving down the price of retail power, right? Like we can, we don't have to fight over power because it's not a mission critical operation. So because we're able to shut down, these energy providers can actually get revenue off of power that they would normally lose. So that brings down what they have to bring in from other retail energy consumers and things like that, right? Um, Bitcoin miners are also, there's quite a few of them. And one of my first projects I actually worked on was in Norway doing a heat recapture project where we um
Sorry, is that flare
it
gas?
no, heat recapture is like whatever you're going to do wherever you're getting your power in Bitcoin mining. You mine the Bitcoin, well, it generates a lot of heat just like any computer equipment does. If you can utilize that heat for another use that is valuable, well, then you're either getting a rebate on your heating costs or you're actually getting paid to mine Bitcoin. So the way that that one worked is we had a small town in Norway that had like one multifamily living place and then like and then a like a municipal building, right, that had like a lot of just normal city and kind of country stuff, um administration and things like that. And they would warm these in the wintertime with boilers, but there's not a lot of gas there, and they have a lot of hydropower, but electricity in and of itself isn't really that efficient for actually generating power. Um, so so they would actually use wood chips to burn in the boilers to run the water through this municipal building. Um, they said, we'd like to actually, uh, you know, it, we'd like to actually mine Bitcoin and provide heat. And I said, well, you can't boil water with the heat generated from Bitcoin mining. It's just a little too low. It runs to about 85, 90%, 90 degrees Celsius max, and then the chips start to shut down. They said, okay, well, what if we could do that more efficiently? And I was like, yeah, we can. So I was working with immersion cooling. So we took 3 megawatts of Bitcoin mining and we plugged it in. And in Norway at the time, if you buy power for heat generation, you don't pay any taxes on it. So we got our power at like cost. We got our power at like 2.2 cents per kilowatt hour, right? And then we used immersion cooling. So we would run these in these oil baths. The oil would go through a heat exchanger. The water and the oil would never touch, but in a heat exchanger, they twist around each other and they transfer the heat, right? So the hot oil would come in, the water would come in cold. It would warm up the water. The warm water would go out and the cooler oil would go back into the Bitcoin mining. So that water would come in and we would raise the temperature about 6 degrees Celsius, 5 to 6 degrees Celsius, maybe a little more than that. And we would charge them for the heat. So I would buy power at like, these are not exact numbers, but let's say 2 cents per kilowatt hour. I would sell the hot water to them at what was the equivalent of 2.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Right?
Nice spread.
But the way that I did it was by mining Bitcoin. So I never had to cash out any Bitcoin to pay my power bills. I was getting paid to mine Bitcoin. Right?
Yeah.
So that's an extreme case that then we found a unique opportunity for. But even someone at home can just get Bitcoin miners and use them as space heaters if they want, right? They can plug them in a room and generate that power. And it may not be profitable for their electricity costs, but if they get half of their electricity costs back in Bitcoin, that's like a rebate on your power bill. Also, you can just pay the power bill because you would pay that power anyway for heat. Hold on to those sats that you get, and then as it appreciates, someday maybe those sats that you earned at that point in 2 or 3 years are worth the 14 cents, 15, 16 cents per kilowatt hour you actually paid for them, right? And then you're at break even. So it's like, and so you got power for, you got heat for free, right? This is the kind of thing that Bitcoin mining can do, that no other cryptocurrency can do. Once Ethereum went proof of stake and left proof of work, their ability to be carbon negative disappeared. They will always, always, always use more energy than the value they provide. Bitcoin only uses enough energy based on the value it provides. So like if Bitcoin value goes down too far, the amount of people that are mining Bitcoin turn off. If they can't afford to mine Bitcoin and pay for it, they are forced to turn off and the global network hash rate goes down. Well, it goes down until it reaches a point where people on the network that are smarter about it, that have better energy costs, they're more efficient, they can still mine Bitcoin in a profitable manner, right?
So right
And
now, sorry to cut you off. So right
no, it's
now
okay.
we're hitting like all-time highs for hash rate.
Yes.
So Bitcoin's sitting at $100,000 or 99, whatever, 102 right now.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin's sitting in between 100 and 120, let's just say, and hash rate's hitting all-time high. There's no reason for any miners to turn off then, at least in the near future, until Bitcoin potentially drops down to like 50K, 60K.
Well, so every individual person plugging in hash rate on the network has to make this decision based on their current situation, right? So you can kind of aggregate it. There's a few different companies that, pull data and kind of try to give you some clues as to how that works. But um, basically, what we're seeing now is even before Bitcoin hit 126 recently, even before 100,000, right? It was creeping up 80, 85, 90, about to break 100, and people were packing on hash rate, right? They either had, so two things are happening. They either had one, a super good power price, right? Based on hash rate going up and they were profitable, or they were going all in on Bitcoin. They were just bullish on Bitcoin and its value and its application and its ability to transform the financial system as we know it. So it's another way that I think, Bitcoin is going to fix this, right? In energy, we also people have no idea how much energy the banking system uses unnecessarily, right? Uh, I can tell you exactly how much energy is used for a single transaction on the Bitcoin network because it's all transparent, right? And you can make some small assumptions within a window of how much energy is being used, and you can get a pretty good idea that, this block every 10 minutes costs this much energy, right? The banking system hates that. Well, sorry, I digress. But when you're mining, um, what that's telling me, if people are putting hash rate on and the value of Bitcoin is going down, that's telling me that there are people out there smarter than me that know things I don't know. And they know they're buying all into Bitcoin, right? Also, if you take the capital expense, the amount of money you spend on miners and to set up the boxes and all that stuff, even at a grand scale, a larger scale, if you take the amount of your energy cost and you got a good energy cost, and let's say you're just spending money, you're saying, I'm going to take my income and I'm going to pay for that energy cost, right? Well, you're taking your income and you're buying Bitcoin at a discount. So instead of going and buying $100,000 Bitcoin today, let's say I have $100,000 and I go buy one Bitcoin, right? I could spend, I can spend the money on miners today, right? If I don't count that initial investment cost, and then I just pay my energy, right? The Bitcoin you're earning may be as low as $45,000, $50,000 Bitcoin, but you you have to pay for that initial miner, right? You have to spend the 4 or 5 grand or whatever it costs for that miner. But if you take that out and you're just looking and saying, so if you have some money and you need a tax write-off or something like that, you could spend the money on a Bitcoin miner, you could plug it in, and then you take your own money as you earn it and pay that power bill over, the next 2, 3 years until that miner becomes unprofitable, right? Based on hash rate. If you're looking at it that way, you have just bought Bitcoin at a discount off spot, maybe as much as 40, 50% off of the cost of Bitcoin. So while that's all happening, you're getting appreciation. You're buying Bitcoin at a discount. You're getting the appreciation from the original Bitcoin that you mined way over here. And you look up in 3 or 4 years and you're like, oh man, that was well worth it, right? Maybe you were at a 4 or 5x. I have That's kind of what I do now is I help guys set up, especially independent investors, set up, mining facilities, or even not a whole facility, but just, get their mining hosted and things like that. Get them a good price, keep their, overall hosting costs down, um, and keep them profitable, right? They write that off, and so they get a rebate on that. So sometimes from a tax perspective it's good, so if they had a windfall they would do that. But it's like buying Bitcoin today, but instead of buying Bitcoin today, they're agreeing to get it over the next 3 or 4 years. So let's say they could only buy one Bitcoin with the value that they invest today. By the end of it they might have 1.2, 1.3 Bitcoin, maybe even 1.5, right? For the same amount if they wait 4 years. So you're getting more Bitcoin by waiting, right? High time preference, right? Low time preference. Then on top of that, you get the appreciation of the Bitcoin from the beginning all the way,
Yep.
right? So you're going to end up with more Bitcoin, and you're going to end up with all the appreciation on it. And if you're doing things the right way and you're reporting it for taxes and everything, you only report that Bitcoin when you get it. So instead of buying one Bitcoin and then selling it after it doubles or triples, right? And you have to pay all the cap gains tax, you're getting Bitcoin here, you're getting some here, you're getting some here. So you're getting Bitcoin here at the value that it's recognized at that day. And if you have to sell some of it out to get yourself something, you don't pay the cap gains on it, right? There's lots of different, so all of these fiat problems, the Federal Reserve, the IRS, energy, crony capitalism, socialism, communism, all of that crap gets fixed eventually, right? All of it gets fixed eventually as more and more people adopt Bitcoin. And there's going to be plenty of people that you're always in the, and then they fight you stage. They're always going to be able to be there to fight you because they know they're losing control and losing the power, right? But it's inevitable. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when at this point. So I don't care how I get my Bitcoin. If I buy it now today, if I mine it, if I get paid in Bitcoin as I provide value, right? That's the best feeling in the world, by the way, when someone pays you in Bitcoin for services. That is, or goods or whatever, right?
Yeah.
All of those things all of that is eventually going to be swallowed up by Bitcoin. The earlier you do that, the better your life is going to be sooner. So,
Yeah. No, no, that was very well said. I have one more question for you. Where do you see the future of Bitcoin mining going? I mean, it's evolved over the past
Mhm.
5 years in such incredible ways. It became, I mean, it's like the meme that was going around a long time ago, but I mean, now it's Bitcoin mining. Everyone said it would boil the oceans. It was like the worst thing in the world. Now it's like, oh my gosh, look at Bitcoin mining. It's saving energy grids like ERCOT in Texas. And now
Mhm.
it's, you know, Bitcoin mining is providing some of the best energy to places in Africa and stuff. Where do you see this going in the
Yeah.
future?
I also, we alluded to it earlier and I didn't get around to it, but, you know, Ethereum can't be carbon negative. Bitcoin is actually carbon negative. So I have my own viewpoints about, the whole green energy and Green New Deal and all that. I think it's all BS.
Okay,
But
we're on the same page.
yeah, we are. But most Bitcoin, not everybody, but most Bitcoiners are. But like, I know that the more carbon we release into the air, the more vegetation we have. The more vegetation we have, the more fuel we have. So it's like, it's agriculture, all of it, animals, everything. It's ridiculous. But even if you want to play that game, right? Bitcoin can actually go in and take methane gas, right? That's venting from like these landfills, harness it, use it to generate power, and mine Bitcoin. Yeah. Um, where it's going to go is you're going to see more use cases like that. You're going to see use cases like people heating their homes, people using it for hot water in their in their hot water heaters. You're going to see people using it for heat. You're going to see people using it for in any spare energy anywhere. So you could literally see small Bitcoin miners built into vending machines. Why? Because that vending machine is on all the time. It's powered on, ready for people to come take it all the time. They do get efficient. Some of the systems shut down, right? It doesn't draw all that energy, but you're like, but if I'm getting that energy and sometimes I'm getting it for free, why would I not mine Bitcoin with it, right? You're going to see, like you said, in Africa, right? Like, so I know Eric with Gridless, and that is some of the most amazing thing. That's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen Bitcoin do. Bitcoin mining specifically.
Yeah.
So there, let's talk about that a second. They're going to places in Africa where there has never been power, there's never been running water. People still go down to a well or to a river to get their access their water. All of this stuff, they have no power, right? Or they have some power, but it's so spotty and so rare to get it and all that kind of stuff. And no one will go into these areas. No one with legitimate, well-meaning company goes into these areas because they're worried about the dangers of it and the instability. So Gridless takes mining equipment and electrical infrastructure that the rest of the world thinks is worthless, they don't want anymore. They take these into these small villages in Africa near their water supply, near a river, and they create these mini micro turbine dams that generate little tiny bits of electricity. They plug in Bitcoin miners that normally would not be worth anything anywhere else, but there they become valuable again. And so they're using it and they're earning this Bitcoin. And then they start teaching the people about Bitcoin, and the people start saving in Bitcoin and utilizing Bitcoin. Even where there's hardly any power, which is crazy, there's a little bit of solar or something like that, they still have cell phone access. Right?
So
There's no place on the planet now that doesn't have some sort of cell phone access. So these people that are super poor, living way below any kind of country's poverty limit you could even imagine, they still have cell phones, which is crazy because that's their form of communication. So they can use these cell phones, right? They start creating these Bitcoin, microeconomy systems, right? They bring boys, young men and women from these little villages. They put them to work teaching them about Bitcoin mining, electrical infrastructure, hydroelectric power. With the Bitcoin, they now have money to buy equipment, run cables from that micro hydro dam over to the village. These people are getting power. Some of them are getting running water for the first time. They're getting power for the first time. We're teaching these young men about engineering, electrical engineering. We're teaching them about money, teaching them about Bitcoin. They're learning about all aspects of that technology, from a developer standpoint to, how the system, how SHA-256 works, how the transact UTXOs, all of this stuff. And the amount of prosperity that shows up just a few months into Bitcoin mining in these villages is unbelievable, right? Yeah. You see the same thing on a large scale with El Salvador. El Salvador has been doing this for a while. Bitcoin is a tool, but it took someone like Bukele to come in and say, we're going to do things the right way. And the right way is to get rid of the crime. We're going to, all of this corruption is gone. He had to do the hard work before Bitcoin, right, to completely clean it out. But someone like that, with their priorities aligned in the right direction, sees Bitcoin and understands how useful a tool it can become, right? This is where Bitcoin goes. Bitcoin starts to slowly seep out and reach. And it's like when we were talking earlier, someone told me about Bitcoin in 2014, and the fiat maxi in me was like, man, I wish I'd got in 2014 and I wouldn't have held it. I would have traded it, right? I wasn't smart. I wasn't ready to take Bitcoin. Bitcoin comes to you when you need it most. So if you are a refugee leaving your war-torn country and you have, and you, all of your electronic money is worthless, you don't have any gold, you can't keep the gold, right? So you can't move it because it'll be confiscated. I can memorize a passphrase and I can move with it, and I take all my wealth with me. And then I get somewhere it's safer. I get access to technology. I set up a Bitcoin wallet and I have access to all of my money. I mean, that's where Bitcoin goes. Bitcoin goes to whoever needs it most. So the people that are struggling to pay their heating bills, they're going to start buying these little, S9s and plug them in because at least it cuts their heating bill in half, right? Or people are going to use it because farmers can't stay ahead of all of the subsidies and all of the fiat gains that happen there. So they start using Bitcoin mining to warm their barns and their water in the wintertime so their cattle can stay warm, because cattle that stays warm grows faster and gives more milk. They start to use it in grow houses in parts of the world where, as a heat exchanger, to give radiant flooring in grow houses so they can grow food not just 3 or 4 months out of the year because of the cold weather. They can grow food pretty much year round. That's where Bitcoin goes. And this is the kind of thing that I keep saying Bitcoin fixes this, Bitcoin fixes this. I was focusing on energy. That's my pinned tweet on X.
Yeah.
I was focusing on energy, but really it fixes all of this. It fixes all of it. Um, I'm excited about where it's going. Those are just some ideas, but what I'm really excited to see is the thing that Bitcoin does that nobody's expecting, right? Something's going to pop, something will bust wide open, and you'll start to see that. Uh, it's already starting to twist and change the financial industry, right? You have Bitcoin-backed loans now that are an immediate and direct attack on the fiat debt system. Like, if you play this right and you build it right, you could have a Bitcoin and you could live off a Bitcoin and not ever work with Bitcoin loans, right? Assuming you can trust the custodian. You got to be careful with that, right? There's things there. But what I'm saying is it's like it's already flipping that on its head. And so it's only a matter of time before it swallows up everything and you see countries follow in suit with like Bukele in El Salvador. I had hope for Milei in Argentina. I don't think that's working out, right? He wasn't quite there. He's a great guy. I love him, but he wasn't quite there. The problem is if you don't embrace it and use the tools that are at your disposal in a proper way, the fiat game swallows you up and destroys you. It doesn't matter. You have to completely commit and exit the system. Bitcoin mining is a way to physically do that, right? Um, when I'm talking about that financial system, sorry, I'm all over the place here.
No,
When I
you're
talk about
fine.
that financial system, when I talk about that, I come full circle here. When I talk about that financial system getting changed, Bitcoin mining is the new Fed, right? There's no issuance of, just debt. We're literally releasing the money, but we're releasing the money in a way that everybody knows. It's transparent. Everybody knows how much Bitcoin there will ever be. They know when it comes out, when it's available, how to get it. All you have to do is spend the time and the energy and to learn the system, invest in the system, build the system, and then work at being more efficient with that system, and you benefit. That's what we're supposed to have, and you don't have that with fiat. So
No, that
sorry,
was
that
an
was a lot.
awesome rant.
That was a
No, that
lot.
was an awesome rant. I was just sitting there like soaking that up. That was so cool. No, I love it when people get all passionate and you can see like like deep down that's actually how they feel and
Yeah,
that's what Bitcoin does to them. And so it's so cool when I see people when that comes out in people. I mean that's why I love doing this because when I get to interview people like you and talk to people like you and it flows out and it makes so much sense and I'm hoping that someone hears it and then it clicks for them as well. So
yeah,
that's the whole
yeah.
goal behind it.
This is
But
that's what makes Bitcoin so great. It's not like multi-level. You're not trying to get people to do work for you. You're just trying to get them to join you and come along. Come with me. Come experience all the good stuff that I've experienced. And this is what makes Bitcoiners look so crazy to the outside world because it doesn't
yeah,
fit.
yeah, we're not
Yeah.
trying to force you into something. We're not trying to get you to buy into Bitcoin because, oh, the more people that buy, the higher the price. We just realize why it's so good. And we're like, we don't want to leave you behind. We want you to come
Yep.
along and
Yep.
enjoy the ride with us. But
Yep.
David, I really do appreciate you jumping on. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
I think it's all on my end. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
Don't
I
worry
don't
about it.
know, man. You never know these days. But
Yeah.
I really do appreciate it. And I gotta ask you one thing before we go though. What are
Mhm.
you how are you feeling about Bitcoin price, Bitcoin sentiment right now?
I don't care, man. I don't care.
Perfect. I love it.
I do like the fear and greed index, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but so when I was first buying, I would try to play the cost game, and I'd wait for dips, and I'd do all, and then and when it was running, it's like, oh, I'm gonna miss it. I can't get, whatever. Now it's like I don't really care, right? It's like
Yep.
if it's going up forever, it's like Sailor says he'll buy the top forever. You know, if it is what it says what we think it is, then I mean it doesn't it's all a rounding error anyway. So just get what we used to say everyone gets Bitcoin at the price they deserve. Not everyone can get Bitcoin right just yet. So just be grateful you can get Bitcoin and go as hard in as you feel comfortable with. Just let that start to fix things for you. Don't worry about the price. Doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and the lower it goes, the cheaper you get it, so it's a
Stack
beautiful
sats,
thing
baby.
either way.
Stack sats. Doesn't matter. Stack sats. Yep.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, David. Thank you guys for listening. Please like and subscribe to this channel if you have not. Thank you for listening to the Bitcoin broadcast. We will catch you next time. Thanks, David.